This episode of the Cork and Entertainment Show is brought to you by Black Box Prompter. Are you a musician tired of being tethered to your tablet or music stand? Do you long to connect with your audience on a deeper level, but find yourself constantly glancing down at your lyrics and chords? Then I highly recommend Black Box Prompter, the smart and stealthy lyrics and chords teleprompter designed to liberate musicians from the stage clutter. This innovative device is perfect for bands, hobbyists jamming out in the garage, touring pros rocking arenas, and even houses of worship looking to elevate their services. It discreetly displays your lyrics and chords, allowing you to maintain eye contact with your audience, adding an extra layer of authenticity and connection to your performance. Don't let distractions hold you back. Unleash your full potential and create a more powerful connection with your audience with Black Box Prompter. Click the link in our episode description and use the promo code Corcoran at checkout for 10% off your purchase. Black Box Prompter, the smart teleprompter built for musicians by musicians. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I'm your host, Frankie Corcoran, on another Thursday, little special Thursday episode that we always do, as I say from time to time. Not much going on. Not much going on today, anyway. Hope everyone has a great Easter coming up this weekend. Tomorrow's Good Friday, so hope everyone enjoys their weekend, safe, make good choices, enjoy time with your family and all that stuff. Moving on to our guest today. Very excited to have her on here. June Morris. She's a playwright. Her latest play, which is called Greetings from Paradise, will be held in Coral Gables, Florida, at the Actors Playhouse at the Miracle Theater. Definitely be sure, if anyone's in the area, be sure to check it out. And tickets, we're going to put the link for tickets in the description if anybody happens to be in Florida around that time, Coral Gables. Great conversation we had with her, as someone who dabbles a little bit in writing. It was a great conversation, and this play is to honor the 100th, or commemorate, the 100th anniversary of Coral Gables. And her mother, actually, Dorothy, served as the first and only female mayor of Coral Gables, which is really, really cool. So definitely, guys, enjoy the episode, and so without further ado, just sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I'm your host, Frankie Corcoran, and today I am joined by a playwright who is behind the play Greetings from Paradise. It opens April 29th and runs through May 3rd at the historic Miracle Theater in Coral Gables, Florida, and it is in celebration of the city of Coral Gables' 100th anniversary, and I'm very honored to have the writer of the play, June Morris. June, how are you today?
Hi, very good. It's so wonderful to be here with you. You're so
Yes,
far away, but you're right here.
yes, exactly. It's great to have you on, and so I really got to ask. First off, congratulations on putting the play together. Does it feel a bit real now that, because it's funny when you write plays and you say we're gonna do this eventually. Now that it's 2 weeks away, is it still kind of like pinching yourself? Is it real? Is it not? Like, how's it feeling?
It's feeling a whole lot better this week because now we've begun the rehearsals and I'm getting to know the actors and I see them performing the lines, saying them out loud and I hear laughter in the right places and I get the emotion in the right places and that's how you know you've got something there. So that's always what is the hardest part for me the first time you ever hear these lines spoken out loud, because up until that point, as you know, because you're a writer yourself,
Mm.
you envision in your mind what they're going to sound and look like because you know your character so well. And then the actors come into the room and suddenly they bring their own personality to it and they have their own way of saying things and doing things. And it's really it's such a wonderful process to see evolve right before your very eyes. And that's where we are now. So yes, it's very exciting and it feels very real at this point.
And that's good. We're always, not that we're kind of putting it off or anything, but we're always you set the date, you write the play, and it's almost like whenever you book a filling appointment or a car appointment or something like that. It's fine. I'll cross that bridge once I get to it, and then you really realize, oh crap, that's today. Like I really gotta. But I'm happy to hear that the rehearsals and stuff are going very well. So you're just writing? Are you directing it as well too, or?
No, we have an artistic director, David Orisco. He's been at the theater for some 30 years, and I know him well. And in fact, we've been working together for the past 2.5 years now on the script, perfecting it as best we can. But even yesterday at rehearsals, we switched something around again. So I love the dynamic process, and so does he. He says he's only done this around 10 times when he's taken a brand new piece of work, and built it from scratch, as opposed to, let's say, buying Jersey Boys and knowing exactly what he needs for the set, and he must go by every line exactly as written. And here we have the playwright sitting right beside him, and suddenly we can say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And we can collaborate right on the spot. So it's such an organic, wonderful process. It's really it feels very much alive.
Yes, I love that too because it makes it more. If you're doing a play, say Neil Simon, you're doing a Neil Simon play, and you don't know what a certain line means. It's like, okay, well, we can't ask the playwright. First off, he's sadly passed away now. But in doing Neil Simon plays here where I am, we'd have to make lots of calls and emails and stuff like that to find out just what this one line means. But having the playwright there, it saves you a lot of time and stuff like that. If you see a line, you're like, I have no idea what that means or what it's supposed to mean. We could just pretend it's nothing, but we'd rather have some more light shed on it just so we can do it justice. So having you in the room must be very, very good and makes for a more collaborative experience, I guess, for the directors. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And for the actors as well, I know that they already love it because, for instance, one of my characters is Carl Fisher. And Carl Fisher, these are real people. As you say, this is a historic play. I've read just about every single book about the history of Florida. It's always fascinated me because my family's a part of it. My family, the Thompson family, were pioneers down here. And I've always wanted to tell a story that my grandmother always told me as a little girl. So then I finally had the opportunity during the pandemic to sit down and write it all out. And I realized that never before has anyone brought these characters to life who actually dreamed up the whole concept of Miami Beach and Miami and Coral Gables. And it's really a fascinating story, the way it played out. It was not an easy ride for anyone. And so now I can't even believe that really that a movie has not been made out of it because it really should be, or some sort of a Netflix series because the characters are so great. But there's Carl Fisher, and he actually came down, in the 19 teens, I think in 1912, and basically turned a sandbar into a paradise called Miami Beach. And he didn't even get credit for it during his own lifetime. He got credit for it afterwards, and now it's called Mr. Miami Beach. But he had a very colorful personality. And every time I saw a direct quote from him where he would use all this old-fashioned language for swearing, I wrote it down, but I myself do not swear. So I have a hard time writing that stuff because I don't even like hearing those words when I go and pay money to see a play. I'm paying money to hear these people say expletives that I don't use in my own life. And so with the actor there, I'm able to say, he's done all this research on Carl Fisher. And I said, you can he has to get my approval each time. There are all these union rules because I'm like, go for it. Make him your own. He goes, no, no, no. This has to go in this way. It has to be done in this way. So it is this collaborative effort between myself and the actors. And I have to tell you that when you go through a process like this, you gain such respect for actors. You really do.
Yeah.
They pour their hearts and souls into the, and you will watch an evolution of a character from the beginning of rehearsal one day at 2 o'clock to when it ends at 10 o'clock that night, and you see that character grow before your very eyes and become three-dimensional, and it's just a wonderful process to behold and be a part of.
It's also great too when you have doing theater. It's always great to be multifaceted in the sense of an actor who's also a director, because there's a lot of challenges that come with acting in terms of line memorizations and pouring your heart and soul. And if some shows are very physically demanding, like farces where you're just everything's just going a mile a minute. And
Huh.
if you're able to, now you're directing a play, and if you see people struggling and stuff like that, you understand it. You're not going to be like, oh, come on, like, hurry up, guys. How hard can it be? You see multiple different sides uh of the like everyone's perspectives. There's so many different perspectives that sometimes people might not realize, that sometimes we go through in real life with some people. If it's a, I don't know, let's say someone's redoing your kitchen. Oh, come on, how hard can it be to redo a kitchen, man? But there's a lot to it, and you don't know it until you try it. Have you done much in terms of acting and stuff like that? Have you had any interest in it, or do you prefer writing over that?
Well, I was in drama in high school, so I did productions there, but I never dreamed of becoming an actress myself. I do love the writing process. I was in television news for over 20 years, and I worked in Los Angeles at KNBC, and I did reports for NBC News as well. I did some national reports and also for the Today Show. I worked in San Francisco, KGO. And so I learned always to write visually. I have always written visually. For instance, in Los Angeles, when you're a reporter, many times you never even go into the TV station that day because the traffic's so bad. So I would take my own car and I would drive to meet the photographer somewhere and I would do an interview and then I would drive to meet maybe a different photographer at a different location. And eventually I would drive to the satellite truck. And I don't even know what they call these things these days. I'm probably dating myself just by mentioning like satellite trucks. I don't even know if they're around. But anyway, then I would go to the satellite truck and I would record my story and we'd edit it right there in the editing bay and then send it to the TV station to air by 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So many times in that mode, when I'm sitting on the 405, I learned how to hear the soundbite when someone spoke. And then I would talk to myself out loud in the car and I would develop my script for my story. And then by the time I got to the satellite truck, I had it all memorized and I knew exactly even where to find the soundbite on the tape. And then I would record the story without even writing down one word. And that's the way you just had to do that by necessity. So I became very good at that. This is the first time I've ever written a play. I started with writing a screenplay, actually. And during the pandemic, when we were all learning new things, like people were learning how to play the guitar or they're learning a second language, I started watching all these master classes and learning how to, and taking it very seriously. And every single assignment I would do. And I spent almost a year just researching and learning how to do the process and doing the character work. And I liken it to if you want to paint a room, if you go in there just with a paintbrush and a bucket of paint, you start splashing the paint on the wall and paint gets on the floor and you've got to clean that up and then you got to clean up where you've messed up on other walls or the ceiling, as opposed to coming in with painter's tape and prepping the room and putting down the drop cloth and then when you go in with your paint, the paint job actually it takes not very much time at all. And that's what I found with writing, that it was laborious to be doing character work, to be doing all the research I needed to do. But by the time I sat down to write, and doing the outline and doing the arc and then doing the hero's journey and all that sort of thing, by the time I sat down to write, it was easy. Like the dialogue, I found that the dialogue came pretty easily to me. Now they say that if you like your own writing, it means it's really bad. So I worried about that. That's why somebody told me that a long time ago, that if you like your own writing, it means it's bad. So
Who says that?
from one of my teachers when I was in journalism school, I went to Northwestern Medill School of Journalism. That just stuck out in my mind. It was a precautionary thing to say because many times we're so pleased with what we're writing. It feels so good to write. You're a writer, so you know how it feels when you write. I don't know about you, but the endorphins go off for me. I can go on a mad hike afterwards. I've got so much energy. But that you're writing with your heart. And when you write with your heart, it's not perfection yet. You have to go back with your mind and correct things or have another set of eyes on it. So the thing is, if you're too much in love with your own work and you put it out there, it's probably bad because it hasn't gone through the full process yet. So I was always thinking about that. And then I finally brought it to David Arisco at Miracle Theater. And then he loved it. And because I took a chunk out of it to create this play for Coral Gables, because the screenplay is about all of Miami and the history of Miami is very diverse. It's very multi-layered, whereas talking about just the beginning of Coral Gables is a little more is a little simpler. And so I took a nugget and created that, and the city adopted it as their marquee event for their 100th birthday, their centennial celebration on the day the city was actually incorporated, April 29th, 1925. And the Chamber of Commerce then adopted it as their marquee event for that night as well. So we're celebrating both the centennial of the city of Coral Gables and the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce. So it's quite an honor, actually.
The Corkin Entertainment Show is brought to you by Podmatch, the ultimate platform designed to connect podcast hosts with prospective guests effortlessly. Are you a podcaster looking to elevate your show to new heights? Or perhaps you're a guest hoping to share your story with a broader audience. Whatever your podcasting goals are, we have the perfect solution for you. Podmatch simplifies the entire process of discovering guests for your show or finding podcasts to feature your expertise. Now imagine a platform where you can easily match with like-minded creators tailored specifically to your niche. With Podmatch, you can effortlessly network with influencers and thought leaders, all while staying true to your podcast vision. There are a multitude of ways that Podmatch can help you grow your brand. You can be part of a thriving community of podcasters and potential guests. Engage, collaborate, and grow together. If you're ready to experience these fantastic benefits for yourself, we invite you to join Podmatch today. Head over to www.joinpodmatch.com/Corkin Entertainment and sign up right now for only $6 a month. That's right, you heard me right, $6 a month. Join the Podmatch family today and watch your podcast soar to new altitudes. Thank you for tuning into the Corkin Entertainment Show, and happy podcasting. Was there any trepidation at all when writing the script, knowing how important all that stuff is, like the 100th anniversary and stuff like that? Was there any trepidation during the writing process because like we said, we're always picky in terms of writing and decisions and stuff. Was there any point where you thought the script was done and you're like, no, I need to make sure that part's done or that's retweaked so it fits better? Like, you're always, especially when it's based on real life events, what are the pressures of that?
Yes. So because this is historical, I had to be correct about certain things, but at the same time, it's not a documentary. So I have a poetic license to build a story, an arc for a story that is not necessarily 100% artistic, historic. However, I didn't want any, we have several well-known Miami historians here. And if I got something terribly wrong, they'd let me know about it or say something about it. And my greatest fear, I think, was that I would say something that was completely off kilter, and then it would kill the credibility of the entire story. And I consider myself to be a journalist first, and so my integrity is very important to me. So one Miami historian is Dr. Paul George. He's with History Miami. And so I asked him if he would read this play. And he said, sure. And I said, I want to pay you. He goes, oh, no, don't. I said, no, I do want to pay you because I want you to take it very seriously. To look at anything. And I said, know that this is historical fiction, but is there anything glaring here? And so we went over a couple things that he was thinking about, and it was wonderful to get his feedback. And then I let other people read it too, who have a sense of the history of Coral Gables. And I'm a researcher at heart. I'm a very, very good researcher. I always have been. And so I did a lot of cross-checking, writing down I took copious notes, And so I definitely feel very confident about the material. And so what my greatest concern was wasn't entertaining enough, because history can be dry, and I didn't want anything to be dry. You might as well read a book about it then, some historical, nonfiction book. It also involves my grandparents, and they provide the backbone for the story. Do you want me to tell you just
Yes,
in a
absolutely. Yep.
So the story my grandmother told me when I was a little girl, and it turned out to be true because I verified her story now. But when she was 18 years old, and this is in like 1923, 24, she went to, they had these large dances where men and women met each other. My grandfather was a returning World War I vet. If you ever seen Gone with the Wind, you see these big balls, and they would, that was just what they did back then. I wish they did it today. But anyway, so they met each other in Indianapolis. They're both from Indiana, Greensburg originally, but they met one time at a dance. And then he was already in Miami closing land deals, because he was an attorney too. He was Purdue undergraduate. He went to Indiana Law School and was a World War I vet. So he's down in Miami and closing land deals. And the Great Florida Land Boom of 1925 is just opening up. And that's a year when 2.5 million people moved into Florida alone that year. Whereas in 1910, there were only 10,000 people down in South Florida. And all of a sudden, the place exploded. So they met each other, and then they started correspondence. And he would send her these pretty postcards too. And many of them would say things like "Greetings from Paradise," and hence the name of the play and of the screenplay. And after a year, and correspondence was an art back then. You wrote long letters. You didn't say, it wasn't a text saying what's up. So they got to know each other pretty well over the course of the year. And then he sent her a train ticket. Now she's 19 and he's 27. She managed to convince her mother that it was a marriage proposal. Because why else in 1924 would a man be sending a young lady like that who's never traveled a day in her life a train ticket? She got on this train, and it was not an easy trek down, getting on and off trains. And she met him down there, and then she said, "You've got to marry me, or I've got to go back on the next train. I promised my mom." And so he was flabbergasted, wasn't expecting that, but he married her, and they had a very adventurous life. But that Great Florida Land Boom, where the country was obsessed with it. It was out of World War, everyone, it was gloomy times after World War I, all the deaths of that period of time. We're just coming out of the Industrial Revolution, and people were getting back on their feet again, and consumerism was just coming about, lots of things being in its age of invention, and people wanted to kick up their heels. And one of the best places to kick up your heels was South Florida, because there were no rules down there. It was the naughtiest place in America during the Roaring '20s. Prohibition was hardly even considered down there. The booze was flowing freely because of the unguarded coastline, all the rum coming over from Bimini and the Bahamas and every place. So everyone was having a grand old time making fortunes, and the fortunes were real. But then the bust of the land boom came the very next year. There were wild swings in the stock market, and much like we're seeing today. And then there was finally the crash of 1929. But during that period of time, there was embargoes and so forth. So it all came crashing down. And then there was a hurricane in 1926 that basically wiped out the early building of Miami and forced a restart of it all. And they went through all of that. So I use their story as the backbone for the tale that I tell about Carl Fisher building Miami Beach and George Merrick building a place called Coral Gables, two very different men with very different visions of what paradise would look like. And they both, in the end, by the way, lost their fortunes. They both became two of the wealthiest men in America during the boom, and then lost their fortunes and became alcoholics and basically lost everything in the end. It's a tale of what passion the heights that it can take you, and the depths it can also take you when you don't know when to stop.
Wow, that's really like when you're trying to think about all the different stories to put into it, how difficult was that? Where there's so much in there, and there's only like what 2 hours to tell it. How do you kind of choose like what's the most important? What do I have to not include? Like, how did that whole process go?
That's a tough process because I started with the screenplay, and the screenplay is everything. And right now Miami is this wonderful tapestry of diversity, but it wasn't back then. The earliest people to come to Florida were from the Midwest, Ohio, Indiana, and then New York and New Jersey, the Northeast. And Miami was half black and half white. And the black story of early Miami is a fascinating story. And we have some amazing black pioneers who nobody has even recognized yet. And so there's a parallel story that was happening at that time, what was happening because of the color line down here. And again, you think about it being the Wild West, the final frontier of America. So the same rules for the rest of the country were not applying. Like the Jim Crow type of things that were going on were not necessarily in the same way in Miami, sometimes worse, sometimes better. But they were actually early Miami white pioneers who were helping out one man in particular, Dana Dorsey, who was a genius and one of the very first black millionaires in America. And he was a son of Georgia slaves, only had a fourth grade education. And his story has never been told. It's in the screenplay. There's never even been a book written about him, but I couldn't fit it into the play. And so therefore, I'm giving a little history about that in the playbill and hoping to speak about it afterwards to some people. And I've been talking about it, and I hope to follow up. Like, I don't want this to be the end result. This is kind of fun that I'm doing for the city of Coral Gables, and it's actually I'm learning so much about the characters just by doing this play and changing things around because I see how it's playing out, you know. But I hope to take it to the next step, which would be to go back to that screenplay or even to write a book to include the very important story of early Black Miami, black and white. It was 50% each.
And you can always have the ideas uh it, jotted down at least, and whether you use it in that play or you use it for a different play or different story, not necessarily a play, any way to incorporate it is, do what you can anyway. And what's it like kind of balancing out the creative process versus the production side of things? Because it's this isn't necessarily an apples to apples comparison, but I've heard of like TV shows and movies and stuff where they've had to they have their whole creative vision. Let's say their first season or so is like 8 episodes. They have to cut it down to 6, and they have to remove 2 episodes, and then they have to figure out, okay, our creative process was kind of steered in another direction because now we have to cut those episodes. So we're trying to figure out how to make it work. What's it like for you when you're trying to balance not just the production side of things and what's the most feasible versus this is how I like this is what my creative vision is and I want to make sure to fulfill it.
Yes. So, for this particular production, I know that it's really a love letter for Coral Gables and for South Florida. It's for people who have never known the history of this area to give them a bite size portion of it and make them curious to learn more about it. And I want to stay true to the story. And I also want to, and even though these men, fell on hard times, what they gave us here in South Florida is their vision of what they could create is what we all enjoy today. So at this stage, I'm really, really loving this process this week of incorporating a lot of the video that I found. I did a lot of research over the course of the last year or so. I think I've seen, it's not my computer making that sound. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
That big,
no, no,
I'm
that's okay. I heard a little bit of beeping, but it's nothing crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how to turn that off. So anyway, but I did a lot of research. I think I've seen every single piece of video, every still shot ever taken in the 1920s in Miami. And we are incorporating all of that into the stage production. So we have down here Coral Rock. It's Coral Gables, named after the Coral Rock. And we have many houses made out of coral rock. We have many archways made out of coral rock. And so that is in the back of the stage. And then in that is a giant screen. And so we're taking all of this video and still photos and everything, and it's keeping it in black and white. And then, so that's history in the background, and then bringing history to life. And I'm seeing it happen, and I have found the most incredible footage that I can't even believe. Like my grandmother came down on the floor on Henry Flagler's Florida East Coast Railroad, and I've got shots that someone took the whole. It's like they stuck the camera out the window, like we do today with our iPhones, and took a video of their whole trip. So I've got that video in the background, and it's just awesome how that works. Um, so incorporating the past into it and making the video to me, this multimedia is to me one of the actors. It's an integral part of the story, being able to see all of that. And there's only so, it's a minimalistic set because this is a short run. It's a special program. It runs for a couple of nights. It's not like, one of these big let's say Broadway productions. We're not putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into the set, but instead incorporating this video the way we are, um, it really has an interesting effect. I like it better. I like it better that way.
It's more it's almost, it allows you to build a stronger connection, I'd say, with the audience, because I mean you're not relying on sets, you're not relying on um big elaborate, shiny lighting and this and that. You're really just like just the actors, and I mean, of course, I'm sure you'll have like the odd like pieces
Yeah.
of furniture and props and stuff like that, of course. But I think it builds a stronger connection with the audience, a stronger connection, I should say, when it's just the performer performing like just by themselves, or well, in this case there are some other people on stage, but builds a stronger connection where they're not relying on the big spectacle, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so it's for those in the audience who haven't heard the story of early Miami and Coral Gables. Just seeing the actors on stage and learning their names and everything for the first time probably wouldn't get the message fully across. I've made two like old newsreel type of videos that will it started out with this newsreel video, kind of setting the scene for what was happening during the 1920s. So people in the audience unfamiliar with that history will hear it. And then to see the old footage up there too, I think even though that's the old footage, it brings it to life. You're seeing people living back there and moving around. And then the costume designer also has this opportunity. There's a huge event here when we opened the Miami Biltmore Hotel. It was after the bust, and George Merrick was, losing his fortune, but he put everything he had into this final big event to try to bring the everything back in line and bring people back to there. People were abandoning their properties or not building on the lots that they bought. And so he put on this elaborate program at the Miami Biltmore Hotel, which the Biltmore Hotel here in Coral Gables is our iconic um, uh, Biltmore Hotel. It's beautiful. And so I went to the Biltmore Hotel and they gave me some photographs that no one's ever seen before of people that night. And so our costume designer gets to see this, and so our actors will be wearing exactly the type of clothes they were wearing, not just guessing, oh, this is a 1920s flapper dress, wear this. No, it matches what we see of the people wearing.
And then you're really immersed in that world, like you're part of that world. Do you dabble much in maybe not necessarily interactive or interacting with the audience members, but in terms of how do you view the whole breaking the fourth wall situation in plays?
Well, we have a little bit of that because there are great crowds around, let's say, the sales events. They have these incredible sales events back then. They called it ballyhoo. And this was when all the salesmen really went over the top with gimmicks and things like that. There was this barnstorming airplanes with the wing walkers, and there were zoo animals, lions and tigers and bears, and there was alligator wrestling and things like that. And we can't really show all that, but there are various times when the actors are kind of including the audience and being there, and talking to them a little bit. So we do that. We make it interactive in that way.
Okay, so yeah, because I've heard of so many different productions where they a lot on audience feedback and stuff like that. And I mean, like obviously, of course, you kind of get fueled by the audience and their reception, whether they're laughing and they're crying.
Yes.
But there's always a point of some people say, yeah, just don't break the fourth wall because
Oh,
it then kind of breaks the immersion. Which I mean, there's many different ways to look at it. I think with fourth wall breaking and stuff. It depends on what kind of play it is, really. I think if it's a more serious play, then is the protagonist narrating the whole thing? Is that established from the beginning? If they're not, then maybe not. Like so, it's kind of a balance. Really, if you're doing a real silly play that involves a lot of audience humor and stuff like that, then yeah, absolutely. Then that kind of gives it a good reason to let the audience somewhat take part in the show. So there's a lot of different ways to look at that. So this one here kind of follows, is it like narrating or from a character, or how does it work?
no, there's no like direct narrating or anything like that directly to the audience. It's a play, and they're acting out scenes. Um, I love what you're talking about, and I wonder if we'll be looking at that a little bit more because there are ways if we wanted to involve. And I do love that when I see live theater and there's a joke that's kind of set aside and brings the audience in it and brings in as if they're part of the private joke or something like that. So I do that, and I love immersive theater as well. In this case, it's really just a play with these people acting out the scenes, and my grandmother first coming down to meet my grandfather, and then there's a reporter who comes down too from New York, and he's come down to find out the true story, like who's getting rich and who's not, and is this all a Ponzi scheme, which a lot of it truly was very much a Ponzi scheme with how the way the houses were being sold, the properties, I should say, and they would be sold several times a day, and before the county courthouse can catch up with the paperwork, and so it was driving values higher than the properties were worth. But yeah, they're going through the whole phase of the boom and then the bust and the hurricane, and in the end, people were leaving in droves, because they didn't even know what a hurricane was. No one said there's a hurricane coming. And they said there's another tropical storm coming. And they didn't know there was an eye of a hurricane either. And so that's when the deaths occurred because before that, it was just a lot of property damage because nothing was being built to sustain, through a hurricane. But then the people came out of their homes during the eye of the hurricane and didn't get back in time. And so there were a lot of deaths and a lot of roofs blown off homes, and people had nowhere to go, and they just got right back on the trains again and left town. But then there's a surprise at the end because you think, all right, Miami was kind of an experiment. It's over now. Everybody left, and you wonder, gee, just how did Miami then pick up and become eventually the Miami we know today? And so there's a surprise at the end with the kind of newcomers that came right after the wave of people up and left after the hurricane. And I can't give it away. But it
Ooh.
shows that Miami is resilient and carries on with good characters and bad characters. In this case, a bad character, but lend itself to some of the I don't know, the more colorful stories of early Miami.
Oh, absolutely. That's awesome. That's awesome. How has kind of, of course, we have three generations of your family, I guess, are kind of involved in a way where there is, of course, your grandmother and then your mother, June. How would you kind of describe the influence they had, not just on your life, but just the play as a whole?
Do you know, my family has a lot of strong women in it, and I never gave that any thought whatsoever growing up. I wasn't thinking in those terms, but in writing this play, I realized it because my grandmother coming down at 19 by herself in 1924 to meet up with a man she'd only met one time. And from Indiana, taking various trains down, that was quite something. That was very adventurous and that was very bold of her. And then when she was here, she founded four churches in this area. She was in the society columns all the time. Back it was a tiny town, Miami. It didn't take much to get into the society, but she was involved. And then my mother is Dorothy. Thompson, but she was Dorothy Hayward coming down. She came down age 20 from upstate New York. And she was valedictorian of her high school, but her family had no money for college. And so instead, she was going to visit her brother out in San Diego because he was in the he was like a Navy, what they would call a Navy SEAL in those days, but they weren't called Navy SEALs, a frogman. But he went over to for the Korean War. So at the last minute, she switched her plans and drove down to Florida at age 20. And she was with her mother, but her mother said, "You have 2 weeks to find a job. And but if you don't find a job, we got to head back up again." So it's the same kind of story that the next generation, she found a job and she stayed down there and became very involved in the community, just like my grandmother, and eventually became the city's first female mayor in 1985. And she actually saved the Biltmore Hotel when it was set to be demolished. And her vote was the deciding vote to restore it. So, and then when I came of age, I went off, first to Northwestern, but then my first job offer was in Salt Lake City. And so I took off. I'm now 23 on my own, and I was out west for a good 30 years in my career. And I just came home in 2010 to be close to my parents again, and because I missed South Florida. So 3 generations of strong women who have ventured out to do new things, and I thought that was a pretty cool discovery. And I wrote an article about it for Women's History Month in March that got published down here.
Oh wow. And like you said, it's not something you really think about when you're growing up. Like when you're growing up, you don't really think about these things, and it's not until, like you said, writing the play, and you don't really realize it, or not necessarily don't appreciate it, but it's just something that it doesn't come to your mind. Like in with certain things, you could be doing something that you love and not really take a moment to let it sink in. Like, I'm doing this and this is my dream. You don't really, that just thought doesn't come to your mind sometimes. And it's just a matter of that old saying, just stop and smell the roses,
Exactly.
type of a situation.
It's one of those aha moments that come when you're writing or you're concentrating very hard on a project and thinking it through, as you say, smelling the roses rather than going through our day and pushing forward with the next project. Take time to really evaluate and actually it really came to mind just in the interviews that I've been doing for this play and then some of the articles that I've written. So even outside the writing of the play itself, when I'm writing about the play, I've had some really big aha moments, and I am taking notes so I can take it to the next level after this, because I think this has turned out to be a wonderful experience, and it's a play that's almost sold out now. Everybody's excited about it, and we've got great actors, these union equity actors, and we couldn't find in South Florida the perfect actor to play George Merrick, our city's founder. And so we grabbed him from New York, and he's coming down tomorrow. So our actors are great. It's been a wonderful experience the whole way through. But as you know, not always smooth. And yes, trepidation. And I've developed a skin rash that
Ooh.
that my dermatologist says that's nerves. That's nerves right there.
I've heard of people that happens to them, and they go, "Oh my God, I must have got some
I
allergy that
thought,
I didn't know about." It's like, no, you're just stressed.
yes, yes, and that's what I'm told that this is. And so I'm like, I'm breathing and I'm meditating and trying to calm down, but nothing will get rid of this rash. My hair's falling out. So, there's a book called The Body Keeps a Score, and it's really true because I don't feel nervous. I feel excited. And every single day that I go and I sit down in the rehearsals and we discuss things, I'm so filled with passion and enthusiasm. But my rash and my hair falling out tells me that deep down inside, my body actually knows that I'm a little nervous about this whole thing.
Which there's good stress and bad stress,
Right.
like I guess you could call it a good kind of stress, but
Mhm.
stress is stress, that can still affect people in ways that you don't want to be affected, you know what I mean?
Right. The stress is there. You can't avoid it, but my goodness, how boring would life be if we didn't have this kind of stress? I think my rash will eventually go away, my hair will grow back, and I'll be on to the next thing that'll make it all happen all over again. But all this waiting, it's like this wait, 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 and then it's going to be gone in a flash. All that
Yes.
work will be gone in a flash.
just
So
blood, sweat, and tears. And I mean,
I
like, I mean, you seem to handle stress pretty good in a certain way. Are there times where you're almost stubborn in a way where you don't want to admit that you're stressed out? Because I know people who don't want to admit that they're stressing over things. Like when your doctor said that it was all stress, where you were like, me, I'm never stressed, you know?
Right. No, I was pretty certain that, 'cause that with all that's going on in my life, that must be it. I was not in a position to argue about that. No, there are times though that I just have to stop. And there's been dealing with certain people along the way, with this or anything else in life, and I have to push away from my desk and just take some deep breaths, or even lie down for a little bit to get by it. But I always think, uh, how fortunate I am that I get to be stressed in this way. How fortunate I am. I have this opportunity that people believe in me that I can do this. And I had a big career in TV news. And when I turned my back on that and headed back this way, I thought, well, that's it. There's my career. And so, who am I now? You have all those questions. But then other opportunities came up, and now I'm doing this, and I'm in my early 60s now. And I think, um, how incredible is that? That my mother is 92, by the way, and she's in very good health, and her brain is still extremely strong and active. Very sharp. So I think, all right, well then, if I've got maybe another 30 years, if I'm as lucky as my mother, how can I use those years? And to be able to finally tell the story that I've wanted to tell is a great blessing. And then to discover what I've discovered about the overall history of Miami, going way beyond just my grandparents' story. To make that kind of the background, I always thought I'd tell my grandparents' story, but learning so much about the amazing people that came before us here, and knowing that their stories have not been told. It's been a pleasure. And I think when I get very, very stressed, that's where I go in my brain. When I push back my chair and take some deep breaths, I say, how lucky am I? How lucky am I? And you're going to deal with difficult people, or someone who doesn't see your vision, or someone who might mock you. And I'm not saying those things have happened, and they haven't happened on a grand scale, but little things happen. And they always do. And to step back and say, wait a minute, I have this opportunity, and it's so glorious, and I'm not going to let anything come in the way of it or spoil it.
Not many people get that opportunity, so soak it up and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Absolutely. That's something we all gotta see here and there, like just be proud of the progress you made and where you are. So feel free to plug where can people see the play. I already said it off the top of the show, but just in case they forgot, I'll let you take it away. Where can they get their tickets, and where is it, and all that stuff?
Well, if anyone happens to be in Coral Gables in 2 weeks, it's down here, Coral Gables, Florida, which is 10 minutes south of downtown Miami. It's the most beautiful city in the entire world. Anyway, the tickets at April 29th. It's through the Chamber of Commerce down here, Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce, their website. It's right there on their front page. And they're doing the opening night. So opening night's a very special night with a VIP cocktail party and a dinner right outside the theater, along historic Miracle Mile. Everyone's going to be dressed like the 1920s. So that's for the Chamber of Commerce. And then the remainder of the nights, April 30th through May 3rd, is through Actors Playhouse. So it's actorsplayhouse.org. And those nights is 8 p.m. and then the matinee on Saturday at 3 p.m. And tickets are like $55, $65 with a matinee, even at $45. So um, that's a good deal.
That's a really good deal, actually. People who say it's too much, maybe it's not enough. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, so the opening night's much more than that because it is a special, special night. But the rest of the time, we wanted to make sure that we were going to make this affordable for everyone while still putting on a fantastic program and a first class program, which it is. I can't imagine a better um, a group of actors, to be honest. We've got the best looking group of actors I think I've ever seen. I'm not sure how that happened, but they're all like very attractive people and very talented. Our set is going to be amazing in the multimedia. So if you're here, come on down. I'll be there every single night. So if you happen to be here, say hello to me.
Yes, awesome. I mean, I won't be in town at that time, but I'm lucky to have had the opportunity to at least say hi to you from here, even if it's
Yeah,
on Zoom.
right.
Well, June, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. So, guys, don't forget, greetings from paradise. Anybody in Coral Gables, in that area, greetings from paradise.
Oh,
It
one
will
more thing.
be.
JuneMorris.com, www.junemorris.com. If that's my website, if you want to get in touch with me or learn more about me, and I have all the information about the play and ticketing on my website as well.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. So be sure to check that out, guys. April 29th to May 3rd. Greetings from paradise. June, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today, and best of luck with the play. And it's in actually 2 weeks, in about
I
3 weeks.
know.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
think. I'm like, when are we recording this? When is this podcast coming out? I always do that.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It was certainly an honor. Thank you guys for listening to the show today. We are going to call it there. I'll see you in the next episode. But until then, this is Frankie and June Morris signing off. Have a great one, June.
Bye bye.